Got your picture that you gave to me.
Before she died, she gave away her possessions, made peace with her fears, and told her loved ones, "I've had a wonderful life. If it ends tomorrow, I'm ready." Days later, the sky tore open and took her. Patsy Cline didn't just die in a plane crash. She walked toward it like she'd known all along. At just 30, Patsy was on fire, an unstoppable force in a world that always tried to silence women with big voices and even bigger dreams. She had clawed her way through a male-dominated country scene, crossed over into mainstream charts, and made the world fall in love with her pain. Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it was aching, raw, human. She didn't sing songs, she bled them. But what the world didn't know was that behind the elegance and fame, she was battling something darker, a deep, unshakable feeling that her time was limited. She had survived one near-fatal car crash in 1961. The scars remained on her face, her body, and perhaps her soul. And yet, just 2 years later, she would step onto a plane and never come home. This isn't just the story of a country music legend. It's a story of eerie intuition, of a woman who lived like a storm and left like one. Patsy Cline didn't just vanish. She left behind a silence so loud, the world has been listening to it ever since. In the early 1960s, country music was still very much a man's world, built on boots, bourbon, and broken hearts, but rarely told from the perspective of the women living those heartbreaks. Enter Patsy Cline, a Virginia-born powerhouse with a contralto voice that could both soothe and devastate. She didn't just sing about pain, she embodied it. And that's what made her impossible to ignore. Patsy emerged during a transformative time in American culture. Rock and roll was on the rise, Elvis Presley was shaking hips on national television, and the civil rights movement was beginning to reshape the soul of the nation. Nashville, however, remained its own insulated kingdom, where traditional values clung tightly to the steel strings of a pedal guitar. But Patsy didn't fit inside the boxes Nashville had built. She refused to be demure. She wore bold red lipstick, tight skirts, and walked with the kind of confidence that unsettled men and inspired women. When radio stations told her crazy was too slow, she stood her ground. When producers pushed her to change her style, she refused. Her music wasn't just entertainment, it was rebellion in rhinestones. By 1961, she was one of the few female solo country artists to consistently chart crossover hits on the pop charts. Her voice, smoky, aching, almost haunted, spoke to people across class and culture. And yet, behind that success was a woman still living paycheck to paycheck, still battling label executives for control, and still recovering from a violent car accident that nearly ended her life. She was no stranger to pain, nor to survival. And perhaps that's what made her legacy so profound. She had earned every note she sang. When she performed I Fall to Pieces, the audience didn't just hear a song, they heard her truth. But in the weeks before her death, something shifted. Friends noted she became oddly reflective. She started giving away personal belongings, her favorite clothes, her records, even treasured jewelry. One close confidante recalled her saying, "I know I won't live much longer." It wasn't dramatics, it was certainty. The night before her final flight, she had the option to drive instead, but she chose the sky. It was as if something was pulling her toward fate, toward the very silence that would soon engulf her name. In a world that was just beginning to recognize her genius, Patsy Cline became an eternal question. Did she see it coming? Was her death a twist of fate, or a prophecy fulfilled? Her story is not just about a tragic loss. It's about a woman who defied every rule, except perhaps the one written in the clouds. Patsy Cline's story didn't begin in rhinestones. It began in hardship. Born Virginia Patterson Hensley in Winchester, Virginia in 1932, she was the daughter of a seamstress and a man who would eventually abandon the family. From a young age, she knew struggle intimately, poverty, broken family, and the weight of responsibility far too early. But what she also knew, what everyone around her knew, was that she had a voice unlike anything they'd ever heard. She sang in church, she sang at local talent shows, and she sang in smoky bars where teenage girls weren't supposed to be. She didn't wait for Nashville to find her. She went and demanded to be heard. In 1957, that tenacity paid off with Walkin' After Midnight, her first major hit. The world heard it, and for the first time, truly listened. The song introduced a new kind of country star. Patsy was not playing the sweet Southern girl. She was confident, assertive, and unapologetically herself. She wasn't afraid to show vulnerability, but she wore it like armor, not weakness. Her voice was controlled yet trembling, strong yet sorrowful, and instantly unforgettable. But her rise wasn't smooth. Between 1957 and 1960, she faced a dry period in her career, bouncing between record labels and fighting to maintain creative control. Nashville tried to mold her into a traditional artist, submissive, predictable, but she wouldn't bend. She refused to give up her style or her sound. And then came I Fall to Pieces. Released in 1961, it was the song that cracked the dam. The track soared on both country and pop charts, signaling a rare crossover moment. What followed was an avalanche. Crazy, penned by a then unknown Willie Nelson, and She's Got You became anthems not only for heartache, but for womanhood. Her voice was suddenly everywhere. Radios, jukeboxes, concert halls, and it was changing country music forever. That same year, 1961, a car crash nearly ended it all. Patsy was riding with her brother when another vehicle slammed into them head-on. She suffered a broken wrist, dislocated hip, and a jagged cut across her forehead so deep it nearly took her life. She spent weeks in the hospital and underwent facial surgery, her scar a permanent reminder that pain was never far. But she returned to the stage just weeks later. She wore a wig to cover her healing wounds, stood tall before thousands, and belted out the same songs, only now they rang even deeper. She wasn't performing, she was surviving. By 1962, Patsy was headlining shows across the country. She was the first female country artist to perform at Carnegie Hall, and the first to headline her own Las Vegas residency. Behind the scenes, she became a mentor and protector to younger artists like Loretta Lynn and Dottie West, guiding them, warning them, shielding them from the predators she had learned to face alone. But there were signs, subtle, quiet, that something weighed on her. She often spoke of death, casually but consistently. She began writing letters to friends, making unusual remarks like, "If anything happens to me, just know I love you." She recorded multiple songs in late 1962 that hinted at finality, sweet dreams, faded love. To the world, she was unstoppable. But inside, perhaps she felt it. That fame was fleeting, and the curtain was closing. And when the call came to perform at a benefit concert in Kansas City in early March 1963, she answered. The crowd loved her. It would be her last performance. The journey home would become legend. Her final flight lifted off into a stormy sky on March 5, 1963. She could have waited. She could have driven. She didn't. That plane never made it past Tennessee. 4 souls were lost, but only one became immortal. Her rise was brilliant, defiant, and far too brief. But it was enough to alter the trajectory of an entire genre and to ensure that country music would never, ever sound the same again. The news broke like thunder. Patsy Cline dead at 30. For many, it wasn't just a loss. It was disbelief. How could someone so alive, so present, so dominant in every room she entered, be gone? But those closest to her were less surprised than they wished to admit. In the weeks leading up to her death, Patsy had been preparing for something. Friends would later describe her as calm but distant, almost serene. She started giving away prized possessions, her signature stage dresses, pieces of jewelry, even handwritten lyrics. "Take these," she told fellow performer Dottie West. "I won't be needing them." She spoke of death in ways that unsettled those around her. She'd say things like, "I've done everything I came here to do," or "I know I won't live much longer." Loretta Lynn, who idolized Patsy, would later confess that her mentor had made comments she couldn't understand at the time, comments that now echoed with chilling clarity. The day of her final flight, March 5, 1963, Patsy could have waited. Her manager offered to book a safer commercial route, or even a car. The weather was poor, visibility near zero, but she declined. She wanted to get home to her kids, and as she boarded the small Piper Comanche with fellow performers Cowboy Copas, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and pilot Randy Hughes, she smiled. She looked peaceful. At 6:20 p.m., the plane vanished from radar. Hours later, wreckage was discovered in the woods near Camden, Tennessee. There were no survivors. The crash was so violent that bodies were scattered among the trees. The official cause was pilot error and poor weather, but to many, it felt like something deeper. A curtain drawn, a prophecy fulfilled. The aftermath was overwhelming. Radio stations across America played her songs in constant rotation. Record stores couldn't stock her albums fast enough. Newspapers called her the Queen of Country and the voice lost too soon. But for those who knew her, the tributes barely scratched the surface. She knew, Dottie West said years later. She knew her time was short, and she gave us everything before she left. Behind the music, the makeup, and the fame was a woman who had fought her entire life. For respect, for survival, for freedom. She broke rules, shattered expectations, and paved a road through a genre that had no room for women like her. And she did it with unmatched grace and fire. There are recordings from her final days where her voice sounds almost otherworldly, heavy, slow, as if she were already fading. Sweet Dreams, one of her last songs, ends with the line, "Sweet dreams of you." It wasn't written as a goodbye, but it became one. Public mourning turned her into a myth. Rumors spread. Some claimed she predicted the crash down to the day. Others said she had seen it in a dream. Whether real or imagined, the fact remains. Patsy Cline walked toward her end with a peace that terrifies us. She wasn't just lost in that plane. She stepped into silence, as if she had finished her song and knew it was time to go. In the wreckage, they found fragments of sheet music, a makeup case, and one of her stage outfits, torn but still shimmering. Like her voice, like her story, it refused to be erased. When we speak about the legends of music, we often focus on their talent, their success, their influence. But with Patsy Cline, we are drawn to something deeper, an emotional gravity that pulls us closer the more we listen. She was not just a singer, she was an experience. Every time her voice played through a radio, it was as if a storm had opened up, revealing the raw, unspeakable emotions we all hide behind polite smiles. At Legends and Secrets, we don't just honor greatness, we dissect the mystery. And Patsy Cline's story is one of the most haunting and sacred mysteries in American music. Her rise was not smooth or sudden. It was earned, carved out with resistance, heartbreak, and the unshakable belief that her voice mattered, even when the world told her it didn't. She wasn't just fighting for fame, she was fighting for space. In an era when women in country music were expected to sing sweetly and stay silent, Patsy sang louder. She demanded better contracts. She called out male producers. She mentored younger artists not with politeness, but with fire. She didn't just open doors, she kicked them down so others could walk through. And yet, it's the eerie calmness before her death that lingers most. That knowing, that acceptance, the way she arranged her life as if wrapping a gift before leaving. Some might say it's coincidence, but here we see something else. A woman so connected to her own soul that she felt the quiet closing in. Her legacy is often reduced to hit songs and tragedy, but that would be a disservice. She changed the genre. She humanized country music, turning it from twangy simplicity into something richer, deeper, truthful. She showed that pain wasn't weakness, that longing wasn't shameful, and that strength could wear lipstick. For us, Patsy Cline represents not just what was lost, but what was unleashed. Her death did not silence her, it amplified her. It took the myth of the country girl and redefined it with scars, soul, and staggering elegance. And now we turn to you. What do you hear in her voice? Is it heartbreak? Is it prophecy? Or is it something you can't quite name, but feel anyway? Because some stories aren't told with facts, they're told with feeling. Patsy Cline was one of those stories. And we're still listening. There's a certain stillness that follows her voice, as if the world pauses to remember someone it never really got to know. Patsy Cline didn't live long enough to see her own legend. She didn't witness the awards, the tributes, the murals painted on walls across America. She wasn't there to hear her music echo in films, television, or the trembling voices of young singers trying to chase that same aching truth she captured so effortlessly. And yet, somehow, she is everywhere. You hear her in the lonely hum of a jukebox at closing time, in the crackle of old vinyl spinning late at night, in the silence after heartbreak when no words seem right, only her voice. She didn't belong to just one genre, one generation, or even one country. She belonged to something more timeless, the language of loss and longing. And in that language, Patsy Cline spoke fluently. Some artists grow famous, others grow mythic. Patsy became the latter. Not by living a long life, but by leaving one that still echoes in the hearts of those who never even saw her perform. Her story remains unfinished, not because of what she didn't do, but because we're still uncovering what she meant. To country music, to women, to sorrow, to survival. They say music dies when its maker is gone. But some voices, some stories, don't fade. They stay in the static, in the wind, in the shadows between verses. And now you know. Some stories were never meant to be forgotten. Patsy Cline's was one of them.